I just thought of this. Instead of having the wires just sloppily leaning out the back, why don't we cut away for them to pop the blah, 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 blah. Oh shit, it's not ready. Welcome back to KimchiRobotics. I noticed that some people have been confused at how this poor man's push button actually works, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. It's a lot simpler than you think. All you're doing is taking this LED right here, and you're going to bridge the positive, which is the longer end, which you can think of it this way: if you cut it into two pieces, you can form a plus because it's long enough. So that's the positive end. If you hook up the ground wire, which is typically the black wire in a battery pack, it's not going to work. It's not going to damage it necessarily, but it's not going to work. So keep that in mind. If you have LEDs that are smaller than this, they're probably going to burn them out. These are not the tinier LEDs. These are the 1.5 volt to about 3 volts LEDs. These will burn out. You can see how tiny they are. A lot of people use these for stuff, but you need to have resistors, so try not to use those. Try to stick with the larger LEDs that are more common, that can handle a higher voltage. So you're gonna need, a simple battery pack. I hate these things, but I mean, it is what it is. These had braided wire. I soldered the ends so I can kind of, stick them into a breadboard. If you're not familiar with a breadboard, basically I tore off the back and I put this tape on here. A breadboard, all it does is it's a bunch of rails that you can stick your wires in, and all the wires on that same rail can share the connection. You can see my breadboard video if you want to see more of that while you get entertained. Also, you notice that these ones they go all the way down. These ones are all connected. So it looks like it's individual, but it's actually not. So that's what I use for this very basic concept build. I'm going to be doing something later on with this, and I think you all are really gonna like it, whoever finds this video. But anyway, while I'm working on it, you don't want to put the battery pack, you don't want to put the batteries in the battery pack, because if you bridge the connection, it's gonna short circuit the batteries and they could pop. I had a battery pop the other day, or they could fizzle out, or they just discharge all of their power. They'll get real hot and then you'll go to use it and it won't work. So be careful of that. I leave them up like this. Basically, the negative end, which is not really negative, but we'll just call it ground, okay? The ground end is this flatter end, and that goes right there. That's connected to this wire right here. It's hard to see it, but it is. And that black wire is connected to the contact there, which is connected to this spring, and then it goes through here. And then there's a bridge in between these two parts right here. You can see it right here if I show it to you. See that? See that wire down in there? You see that, right? That makes that connect to the negative end, or the ground end of this battery. And when we do that, we add the voltage. So if you look at a battery, you can see it'll say what voltages it has there. It says 1.5 volts. You see that, right? So we're gonna have 3 volts, and that's perfect for these normal size LEDs. These handle 3 volts very well. And if they burn out, you can use a resistor or potentiometer. Check out my other videos if you don't know what those are. So anyway, the electricity is gonna flow out through here. Depending on who you ask, it might flow that way too at the same time. So that's the battery pack. The breadboard is just something that'll hold all your connections together. If you don't have one of these, that's okay. You can use alligator clips where you clip it on and the wire, and then you clip it onto this wire. That's fine, it doesn't really matter. Moving on, if you look inside of here, what I've done is I just hot glued 2 wires right there. So that was probably the hardest part, was getting these to stay while, I had to hold them while they were gluing in place. And if you're wondering what kind of wire I use, is this wire. Basically, I get it on Amazon, and it comes in these spools here. It's pretty decent wire. It's decently priced. It's solid core wire. I don't like braided wire, mostly when I'm doing projects, and like you can see, these are the flexible braided wire, but they're hard to plug into anything. So I recommend against those. I recommend you getting these style wires. You can take a look in the description. I'll have a link to what I buy off of Amazon. I think it's a good value. The actual wires, you'll see there's contacts that I've made by just looping the wire. So I looped I strip the wire. If you don't have wire strippers or know what those are, that's what these are. If you clip off a piece of wire, you find out how long that is and you strip it off like that. And you're probably gonna want a little bit longer than that. Hoo-ah! There you go. So that's just enough to stick into a breadboard. Boom, just like that, see? Isn't that nice? You could take like a needle nose plier, or if you have like a jewelry plier, all you gotta do is oh, come on. Loop, oh, come on. Loop, oh, come on. So anyway, you could just loop it around like that and then bend it over like that. Boom, see? Then you got something, you got a little pad right there. I mean, you could do more if you want. It's totally up to you. But that's basically it. You could also, if you had like a conductive piece of metal, like a disc or something, or I have these nickel these things that you solder batteries together, lithium-ion batteries. I know you're not gonna have this, but this is something that is solderable, but it's very flimsy. This would actually be better to solder these two, snip it to size, and then that could be like one pad. That's what I wanted to use, but I wanted to show everybody how easy it was just to use the most basic pieces. So basically that's what is on each side. You see that? Okay. So I just poked holes. I just used a screwdriver and just poked a hole through this box. And then as far as the button is concerned, you can see that I took a paper clip and a spring and I held them in place with, you can use helping hands. These are popular on Amazon to hold stuff in place. Or you can use pliers, or you can have a friend grab another set of pliers and you can both be, you know, holding the things in place while the glue. You have a lot of time when you use hot glue, and hot glue is my most common weapon when I put stuff together. I love it. It always works. And you don't have to have a metal bottle cap. You can also use a plastic one. You don't even have to use a bottle cap. You could just cut out a piece of cardboard, really. It doesn't matter. All you're doing is having a surface that you can push, and you can see how it works here. See? So when those two contacts are bridged, there's a paper clip that it goes this way. It's flat on the inside, and then I just rounded it into legs of equal length. So it's fairly equal, and it's a very simple push button. So I just got the glue there and it's floating otherwise, but you don't have to do it exactly like that. There's a lot of ways to do it. And then when you put bridge the connections, remember these are connected. There's a divide in the middle. That's for microchips when you're doing stuff. If you want to learn how to do that, I can show you how to do that. I got stuff on my channel for that. So you just take one side, it doesn't matter which side it is, and you take the other side and you plug it in somewhere else. We want to hook up the LED. So remember, the positive side is going to be the longer end. So you could choose which side you want the positive side. It doesn't really matter. Let's put it on this one, okay? So the positive side is in. The negative side is going to be next to it, but kind of away. This is an old LED. There we go. All right, so you can see I got it kind of, not on the same. So these are connected this way. This wire and this lead are connected on that same rail. This one, it doesn't matter which hole you put it on. You could put it on any hole on the same rail. And then this end, we're just gonna leave it where it is for now. So let's focus on our power supplies. Our power supply is going to plug into the negative side. There we go. I just had to move it a little bit out of the way. So I'm gonna plug the negative end. Oh boy, now I did it. I need to really solder on some solid leads. All right, that's in there fairly well. I think some solder came off. You know what? Let's do it now. All right, I'm just gonna use some of this black wire and some of this red wire just to keep it consistent for the color. All I need is a little teeny bit, so I'm just gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna snip that much. And you just strip both ends. Strip it. There you go. Okay, so we got a little piece to work with there. And actually, let's strip this one first. There we go. I need a new one of these. Look at that. Yikes. Yeah, 22 gauge. So that's done. All right, now I'm gonna turn on my soldering iron. Fire her up, Dale. Oh yeah, get to see me solder. I almost never record this. All right, taking the batteries out of the pack. Let's do the positive line first. So you'll notice I need a little bit more room to solder on. I'm just gonna strip this just a little bit. So this wire's just a little bit thicker. There we go. One thing you have to be careful about when stripping braided wire is it tends to just like strip it off on the outer edge. So just be a little gentle when you're doing it, or you know, you don't have to like mash it. And do the other side. You can see where the solder is. It looks kind of terrible. All right, so there we go. All right, so you got 2 longer ends to work with. A lot easier to solder. So I'm gonna take these helping hands and I'm just gonna put it right there. I smell burning. We cooking in the kitchen today. You know what? Let's use the longer end for the breadboard end. Just gonna strip a little teeny bit more. Have a good, nice connection. There we go. This is why I don't record me soldering. All right, so now we got 2 long ends. Nice, it's a little bit better. All right, so then you just kind of put them together like that. And it is a little tricky, but soldering is really like riding a bike. It's just experience, and then you just have to practice, and once you do enough, you're gonna be fine. It just takes a while, so be patient with yourself. Now, where is the solder? So I got my solder. All right, one thing is you don't want this tip to stay too hot. I made a YouTube short about soldering, so go check it out. It's not too bad. You also want to do this in a highly ventilated area.
Not a closet like I'm in.
It's all good. One tricky thing about braided wire, it tends to burn. Let me just show you my ninja skills. You ready for this? You want to get them as touching as much as possible. I don't like to fray it out and then wrap it around. I hate doing that. This is not me. So I'm just going to show you how I do it. The solder is supposed to flow to the heat. A lot of people don't know that. You'll do like this. That's to tin it, and then you tap it. That's so it doesn't burn the end. The solder will automatically seek out the heat. It's very, very interesting to watch. However, with the braided wire, it's tricky. So I'm going on the solid wire, and I'm just gonna tap the solder on top of the braided wire, and hopefully that'll flow better than, nope, didn't flow at all. All right, let's try it again.
Nope.
Oh, there we go.
Nope.
Okay, stick it on a little bit. That looks pretty good. So yeah, you gotta really baby it. But I did need to do this. There you go. Little touch-up job. Never hurt anybody. All right, looks like crap. So yeah, that's good. It looks pretty terrible, but we can cover that with some heat shrink tubing. If you don't have heat shrink tubing, use electrical tape. You just use just use this stuff. It doesn't matter. Don't spend all your money trying to get all this stuff. Just figure out what you can do and just use what you have. All right, so now let's do the black wire. So my iron is still on. You could turn yours off if you're gonna solder anything and you need to like do a little work in between. I have like an internal clock in my head from so much experience and making so many mistakes. So I do know like kind of how long it's been idling. And what you can do is you just clean it and re-tin it. Again, open a window, turn on a fan. If you want more tips and tricks or help soldering or trying to understand what soldering is, you could check out my page on it on my website. There's a link in the description of how to get to my website. Eventually I want to turn the website into something a little more nice and professional and easier to read. But for now it's just kind of, there for anybody who likes to read. I don't know if people even visit websites anymore. I mean, personally, most of my content that I consume, I guess, or view is video format. And most video format I listen to, I don't even read it. So that's all done. We're gonna make sure to re-tin it so it's got a solder to melt instead of melting the actual tip. Tap it, rack it, and then turn it off. Just let it sit. All right, so I got my heat shrink tubing. It's about this size. Just anything that'll fit over. And I'm just gonna use the whole thing because I don't feel like cutting it to size, and why not, right? Make sure to get all the solder. You'll probably have some jagged edges sticking out. That's all right, just get it around it. Yeah.
Nope.
There we go. Thanks for helping. All right, and then put the other one on. And again, I'm not cutting it because I don't care. There we go, that looks good. Okay, so now my soldering station has a heat gun in it. If you have a heat gun, you know, something that like can melt cosplay, that's good too. Or you could just use like a hairdryer, or my favorite is a lighter. You just take a lighter and then you get the heat under it, and then it'll shrivel up like it's supposed to. I'm sure you could make a joke with that. Wish me luck. See that? See how it's shrinking? Shrinky dink. And that's good enough. That'll work. That was better than before. If you have a heat gun, make sure to leave the unit on so that it can cool down the heating element inside. Anyway, just a tip. Okay, so here we go. What do you think? Not bad, huh? Solid. Let's test it out. So again, I have my way better looking leads, and we're just gonna hook this bad boy up. Ooh, like butter. I'm so glad we did this together. Aren't you? Basically, all this is it cuts the connection, and you're bridging the connection again. So think of it as one continuous wire going from the battery pack through the button when it's pressed down and to the LED. So what we can do is we can hook up one side. So let's hook up the positive side. It doesn't matter which side you implement the button with. So we're just gonna hook up the positive end there. And then the ground wire, we're gonna hook it up to one end of the button. And then we're going to hook up the other end onto our ground, aka negative side. Don't get confused. The negative end is coming out here and it's flowing to here, and it's stopping there unless I bridge the connection, and then it's gonna go through that paper clip that I've bent, and then it goes through here and meets this end. And so the electricity can make the effect inside the LED. Let's see what it looks like. So I'm hooking up, see this positive end? And here's the other side. They are now in series. Okay, and I'm gonna push a button. See? That's that. I love that. It's so quiet too. It's like stealthy, but it could be quieter. All right, so now let me show you exactly how I fashioned this push button. And I'm gonna use a soda cat, which is probably what most of you have lying around. So the first thing I'm gonna do is disconnect the battery just for good practice. You never know. So we got our cap, we got our glue gun. All right, so this is the spring pack that I picked up from Harbor Freight. You can get any kind of spring you want, but I noticed some of them are different than others. I like ones that are a little less strong than this one. You can use any spring you want, but if it's too skinny, you know, it's gonna be like flopping around, so be careful with that. I would get one that's kind of wide and not too strong. If you want it a little loose, you can stretch it out, but that also makes it taller, so just to keep that in mind. I don't really need anything too tall, so wow, we could just make one like that. Boom, 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 boom. That should be good. So we want the paper clip to be a little bit lower than the spring. So I would put the paper clip legs just above that. And if they're too flush, you just stretch out the spring a little bit. So let's use that. And now we need to use the paper clip. So you can use any size or thickness you want. Eeny, meeny, miny. Which one should I use? Let's just use a smaller one because I think that's what most people have. And you're gonna need something to bend it and cut it. All right, so I got these needle nose pliers. So we're gonna stretch that out. All right, so now we got something to work with. You could also make your own spring if you have this kind of wire, or piano wire that's really, or music wire that's really thin. You can use a lot of materials to make something bouncy, so don't freak out if you don't have access to that stuff. All right, so just straighten it a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're making trash with trash, so Just calm down. Everything's gonna be fine. All right, so there we go. Now what we want to do is basically make this shape. All right, we just want to make a little square wave looking thing. I didn't even measure mine, I just guessed it. I did mess up twice and got it right the third time, so now, you know, I just guess. So I just lay it like that and I say, okay, I'm gonna put that end there and that end there. I'm gonna glue that first and then I'll put more hot glue and then place the spring on top like that. I would recommend bending the legs just to make sure it all fits before you glue anything. So let's do that together. So first I'm going to bend the legs down on the first side. So if we have the spring about yay tall, we're gonna need legs just sticking out. So this is about that tall. Okay. And then we're gonna need to bend it, so. All right, so I just bent it. And let me bend the other side. So I'm just guessing. I'm not a craftsman. I am not good at mental maths or none of that shit. So don't feel bad if this is tough for you. All right, and then I need a little like leg. You could actually make like kind of a square or a loop. I just use like a little kind of a leg like that. See? And then I would bend this side before you cut it. If you cut it, it's a lot harder to bend it. That looks pretty good. And then you cut it. So yeah, not perfect, but good enough. All right, so let's see how it fits inside. Ooh. Oh wow, it's way too tall. All right, so actually let's bend this again. And snip it off right there. Just made it a little shorter. Let's see how that looks. That's better. You see that? Compared to that? Let's see if we put the spring in, get your ass in there. Yeah, that should be good. You can kind of see, right? Easy peasy. Boom. That is wonky. Just how I like it. Put a little glue in there. Don't be shy. Just put some glue in there. We're gonna fill it with more glue. So if it's nice and hot, it gives us a lot of time to set this in just right. So put it where you want it. Oh yeah, this is looking good. Almost flush. So you can see what I'm doing here. So as long as the legs stick out past the edge here, as long as they're taller or lower than the bottle cap, you're fine. All right, so don't be frustrated if it's not perfect, and just hold it up while it dries. All right, let's get the spring on there. Looks pretty flat. Yeah, you could use both sides, doesn't matter. If you wanted, you could even put a little floor in there just to separate the two. All right, I'm gonna use this piece of cardboard because I just had a good idea. I do need a floor in between. It just makes it easier when you're gluing. That's not a circle. That's a potato. All right, it's too big. Let's see, does that fit? Balls out. All right, we're gonna just put a shit ton of glue in here. Let's put some down here. Look at all that. See how much I loaded up? And then all you gotta do is hold your spring. Boom! So now you just gotta let it dry or cool down because it's wet, but it's not a liquid. Because it's wet, but it's not a liquid. It's wet, not wet. So that's what it should look like. This is how mine turned out. Not bad, huh? Again, it might take you a few tries, but you're gonna get it, and it's cheap stuff. You can test it out right here. Oh yeah, that's not bad. Cool. All right, so now what we gotta do is make the wires on a box or something that we can bridge the connection. So the connection's gonna go through one end, go through the paper clip that I clipped and glued in there, and go to the other side. That's all it does. So I'm gonna use this as my container. It's an old thing of tofu. It's an old thing of tofu. Just gonna rip this off, throw that shit away. And then I got a nice little box that I can put it on top of. Use stuff that you got. Which color should I use? Let's go with yellow. All right, before I cut it, I'm just gonna show you exactly what I do. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So, you're gonna want something that you can make a loop big enough. All right, so I made something a little bit bigger than what I had on the original design. And I'm just gonna leave it kind of like that. It doesn't have to, you know, be connected to here. Basically, the electricity is gonna be in this wire and it's gonna get bridged through the bottle cap, which has the paper clip in it. So it jumps up through the paper clip and goes to the other side. And I think that's a pretty good size lead there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and snip this one off. You can snip it however short or long you want. I don't need about that much. And then I'm gonna snip the other side, which we're gonna plug into our breadboard. All right, so this is ready to go. That's all you need. If you don't have wires, there's other stuff you can do to connect stuff. I mean, you could just use paper clips. You don't have to poke a hole and put it through. You can put it over the top. Nobody cares, you know, just do whatever you want. Now I'm gonna just poke a little hole where I wanna put it. So if my leads are here, I'm going to want to put them about there and there. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark that right there and right there. Yeah, that looks good. So now we're gonna poke a hole. Twisty, twisty. See? Boom, easy peasy. There we go. Double check. Yeah, seems good enough. Okay, that should be enough for it to be able to bridge the connection. Boom. See, it's just like that. That's all you gotta do. Nice and flat. Okay. Boom. That's good enough. That's all you need, really. All right, wire number 2. Boom. Now we're ready for glue. And for more stability, I like to glue them together like that. All right, and just make sure it dries flat and in the right position. You can double check by putting your push button over top of the leads and making sure that the connection can be made. So this one needs to be about right there. Okay, so you just hold it like that until it dries. It's looking pretty crappy, right? Perfect. All right, so the glue gun's still hot. One last check just to make sure we will make contact with the contacts. And we're gonna slap some glue right in the middle there. Ooh. Nice. Love the smell of hot glue in the morning. Smells like victory. And you just put it like that in the glue. And make sure your leads line up. Yeah, that's good enough. I mean, you could even test it like while it's, you know, still hot. Oh, that one went astray. Oh, where are you going? Yeah, make sure, test it out, make sure it lines up. If not, you could reheat the glue or just tear it out and redo it, it's fine. So that's pretty much it. Oh shit. So that's pretty much it. Magic red button. Now we just need a little decoration. All right, I just realized I don't want the wires just hanging out like that. I want them to come through their own little hole, and actually we're going to end up twisting them to make it look a little bit neater. Let's make them come out the side. And we're gonna do it the easy way. Snip, snap, snap. Keep it simple. Now we can twist these. Just remember, if you didn't cut them long enough, you're gonna lose distance, so you don't have to twist them if your wires are too short. As you can see, one is shorter than the other. And the last thing you gotta do is hook it up. Oh, and of course, plug in the batteries. Boom, it's done. Now, you can make a better design, I'm sure. In fact, next time I think I would do more of a spiral design with the lead wires so that it has more of a chance to make the contact. So that's pretty much it. I have an idea of what I want to do with my poor man's push button idea, and it has something to do with your computer. Stay tuned.